a lot more on the audio side of embracing kind of the new CEDIA standards and other standards in theater with immersive audio. That Trinov and Everybody demo was like one of the sickest ones I've seen. And it seems like that thing, every time we see a different show.
We should talk about that.
But it grows bigger.
Let me rephrase that. Please stop speaking.
On this episode of ResiWeek, we wrap up ISE 2025, Z-Wave's new accelerator, and Sonos layoffs. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek. This is ResiWeek, episode 470, ISE wrap-up. Welcome to this episode of ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matty Scott for AVNation.tv, and this week I'm pleased to be joined by two of my long-standing friends. First, we have Mr. Joseph Whitaker. He's the VP of Technology at Origin Acoustics. How you doing, Joe?
Doing amazing. Glad to be back on the show. Getting over, a little jet lag and eating too well for a week.
Life is hard for both of you. It would seem. The other gentleman there is Avi Rosenthal. He's a partner at BlueConnect Partners. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. And like Joe, luckily I don't get too much jet lag, but I am really missing the Iberico for breakfast. That the ham is just, I had just a mundane cup of coffee this morning. It doesn't stand up.
No, that's rough. I had ham this morning, just not fancy ham, just ham.
You never realize that American coffee is a problem until you come back from Spain. And then you're like, what is this boot water stuff I'm drinking?
Yeah, I keep hearing that from friends of mine that drink a lot of coffee. All right, gentlemen, let's kick this off. As they are alluding to, they just got back from ISE, as did some of the AVNation team. So we are going to point you over to the AVNation website where we have all of our coverage. Joe, I want to start with you on this, and I'll kind of give you an opportunity to plug something that you guys were showing, if you would like, but also ask you to answer kind of the question on your feel from the show, if there was a prevailing technology or specific exciting vertical that you saw on the floor at ISE that was relevant.
Oh man, I did see a lot. Big screens were kind of like, that was all over the place. The new tech that Samsung was showing for the wall, I thought was absolutely, like, I was mind blown. I got to hang out with Chris Hogg for a second, actually talk about it. That's a shift in the right direction, right? Making those start to compete with projection in other areas, which I thought that was actually pretty cool. Another one of the things that I saw, I stopped by Audidate, I talked to some other people, is the movement of media around a home or business, doesn't matter, is actually starting to improve and get a little more steady based on real standards, instead of somebody just whipping up something and saying, oh, I'm going to transmit this over whatever black smoke magic that I have. There's like more of an embracing of standards. I saw the guys at Pulse 8, and they're like bending real standards like to their will, which is kind of crazy. They're breaking stuff out. They're mapping. It's like actually really, really impressive. That was one of the big ones. A lot more on the audio side of embracing kind of the new CEDIA standards and other standards in theater with immersive audio. That Trinov and Everybody demo was like one of the sickest ones I've seen. And it seems like that thing, every time we see a different show.
We should talk about that.
But it grows bigger. It's like they keep adding channels to it. And I'm like, well, where does it stop? And they go, well, when the budget does, and the budget keeps growing, so we'll just keep making it bigger. Okay, cool.
Can you talk about their switching system or lack thereof?
That was different.
Every time we put in a new clip, right? Why the audio lag every video clip? It was really unprofessional in the way that they switched that around. Fillings rattle? Yes, my fillings rattled from 14 channels of subwoofer. But at the end of the day, it's like, meh.
Yeah, but it sounded good. And that was the whole thing. Yeah. What they're doing with the audio technology and sticking with spec is good, regardless of switching and all that other stuff. The one big takeaway, though, Matt, out of all the takeaways for me, was the feeling. Like this felt like a show from many years back.
Yeah.
There was actually excitement. There were actually people smiling. The place was packed. It was like I actually haven't felt like that inside at a show, man, pre-pandemic. Like 100% honestly. That was sure sights that as things change, our industry's still there and the heart is still there. That was my big takeaway.
Yeah, and I would absolutely agree, Matt. The show, so I would say this is second year in a row that the show is absolutely back. Last year, they broke a couple of records in attendance. I'm going to assume they did again this year because it even felt more crowded to me than it did last year. The show floors, the halls were packed. I mean, wall to wall, even all the way out to hall 8. This is one of those, you enter the first hall and you got to walk all the way back to the 8th hall to get to the audio rooms. And even out in the 8th hall, it was still crowded. The crowds were there. The excitement was there. It's one of my favorite shows because of all the new things I get to discover. When I go to a CD or a CES, yeah, there's new things there. Yeah, they are fun shows. But all the press releases come out before it. And so there's not a lot of mystery by the time I hit the show floor. This show, tons of mystery. I found home control products that I had never seen before. There's a company out there called Pierre. It's got some really cool software, really cool hardware. It just doesn't happen to be available in North America. And so we haven't been exposed to it. But there's a whole new crop of software platform coming up because if you think about it, a lot of people say that Europe is essentially 5 years behind the US when it comes to the installation numbers. First of all, I don't know if that's true anymore because I think the pandemic turned everything upside down to begin with. But second of all, even if you take that as sort of like, okay, they are, then they're just coming into their renaissance where we were 5 years ago with software platform. And there was some great, great technologies. One of the coolest ones I saw was a company in South Korea was showing a new LCD module, a new semiconductor. Traditional LCD modules, it's red, green, blue stacked next to each other. So you get red, green, blue, red, green, blue, red, green, blue. These guys figured out how to do this. So it's red, green, blue. No matter what angle you looked at it at, there was no red shift. There was no blue shift. Everything was dead on. Everything was perfect. They actually had one of their panels on a rotating stand, so you could spin it 360 degrees with no color shift at all, no matter what the angle was, at full 8K resolution. It was simply gorgeous. And by the way, uses half the power per square inch and puts out 4,000 nits. Was absolutely unbelievable. Now, they are from South Korea, so we can all assume where we're going to see this technology next. This was an example of it, and even the representatives that I spoke to were sort of like, well, we're in Korea. Who do you expect to have it? I was like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But it was a phenomenal technology that, by the way, wasn't at CEDIA, wasn't at CES. Yep. There was no reason for it not to be in those places, but they chose to highlight it at ISE. It was a phenomenal show. Really, really was. It was exciting. It took me 4 days to get through it. It was some really, really cool stuff.
Avi, let me ask you this. Was there a difference? Again, you were just at CES. Obviously, we had CD a couple of months prior to that. Was there a difference in maybe kind of like the overarching vertical push at ISE versus CES versus CEDIA? Essentially a US versus Europe.
Yeah, US, well, but it also goes to the flavor of the show, right? Mm-hmm. CEDIA and ISE are shows that I can go to where I can see technology that I can buy today, right? The people on the show floor, for the most part, in both of those shows, and even Infocom for that matter, right? I can go and I can place an order for what I'm looking at, because even if it's not available at this very moment, it's available within the next couple of months. Mm-hmm. CES has become a show about idea and innovation. I go to CES, I know that it's not necessarily a purchasing show the way that it used to be. It's now an idea show. It's an incredible array of ideas. It's an incredible array of innovation, but it's not a show where I'm going to cut a purchase order.
Yeah.
Last week at ISE, you could buy 95% of what you saw on that show floor. I mean, this one semiconductor that I talked about, obviously not yet, but for the most part, you could buy what you saw. The seating, the setups, the amplifiers. I mean, like we sat with the Leica guys. Leica is bringing out a projector that matches pixel per pixel the quality of their cameras. I mean, it's going to be a phenomenal brand, right? And they're going to bring it to the States. The Trinov Audio is another one. I mean, we've seen that. That was at CEDIA. So the Trinov Audio one was an interesting one. But there's also a bunch of newer companies, a bunch of established European brands that are about to come to the U.S. And having the opportunity to sit and talk with them, the other thing that I found at ISE is the decision makers are in the room. The leaders of these companies come. That's not always true of a lot of trade shows these days. They usually leave it to the sales and marketing guys. But at ISE, there were engineers, there were the leadership, even our friends at Crestron, right? Brad was at the show doing his thing, hosting a whole bunch of seminars and webinars. He was doing booth tours. You know, that you don't see that at every show these days. Yeah. But everybody was very fully engaged. I agree with Joe. There was an excitement on the floor. Absolutely.
Yeah, that is definitely the case. All right, gentlemen, let's change topics for a second. This comes to us from CE Pro. The Z-Wave Alliance has introed a enhanced spec package and a new membership tier in the 2024B spec package. There's a bunch of new things, including new and updated Z-Wave command classes, etc. Avi, obviously, we're going to start with you on this one.
Come on, Joe. Tell us all about Z-Wave. No,
I know plenty, but you go ahead.
Okay. You can, but we're gonna let you dive into this one for a second. Tell us more about the importance of the new spec package and how that affects both manufacturers and end users.
And actually, it affects dealers even more, right? So Z-Wave Alliance 2024 had a banner year. We did phenomenally well. And for those of you who don't know, one of my volunteer positions is I happen to be the chair of the Z-Wave Alliance. And it is a volunteer position, by the way. Your listeners, your watchers, your fans should know I don't get paid a dime by the Z-Wave Alliance for the work that I do for them. I do it for the passion. I do it for the excitement, and I do it for the heartache, honestly. No. It's a lot of work, but it's a labor of love. So 2024 banner year, the new spec package was worked on by a number of companies. We're really excited about the credential command class that's come out, which means that we can actually take credentials, access control credentials, and move them via the Z-Wave command and control radios that used to only be limited to things like Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, but we can actually do it via Z-Wave now, so that when you're doing Z-Wave locks, you can interface with major credential software. And so, as I'm sure most of you are aware, there are many Z-Wave locks out there. The lock manufacturers are the ones that were looking for this. Credentialing is obviously very important in access control. The more the Z-Wave standard gets used in things like multifamily and hotels, the more you need that kind of credentialing. You need scheduling and things all tied into your access control system. We still call them locks at Z-Wave because I think we're a little behind. They're really access control systems, right? They're really the ability to allow the right people to enter at different times, different days, different methods, all kinds of things like that. The other really exciting part, other than the fact that we had the very first Z-Wave European Summit since pre-COVID over the weekend, so we tacked it on to the end of ISE. We had almost 100 participants all hang out with us for the day on Saturday. We had some great speakers. There's lots of things going on in RF protocol right now. Cybersecurity, data privacy, interoperability are all major tasks that every RF protocol are looking into, Z-Wave obviously being one of them as well. And we're having lots of conversation. The last thing I'll say, because I know I've been talking a while, is we've got a new way to join the Z-Wave Alliance. For manufacturers, a lot of startups are having trouble picking which alliance, which RF technology, based on what it costs to join those alliances. Yeah. And so we are taking a really positive step forward at the Z-Wave Alliance. A startup manufacturer can now join for as little as $2,500 a year. All we ask in return is that they volunteer and give some of their time to the working groups and to the open standard, that they contribute to the open standard at Z-Wave. So if they're willing to give some time, we're willing to make an investment in them. It's a tiered program, so we look at it as a 5-year plan. You enter year one, the dues gradually increase The volunteerism gradually increases. But at the end, you've got the full support of the Z-Wave Alliance, the full support of all the members in the technology to help launch your product into the marketplace.
Gotcha. Now, and that's the new accelerator program, correct?
Yes, that's the new accelerator program.
All right, Joe, I had a specific question on the accelerator program, so I'm glad Avi kind of gave a quick rundown on it. How much will this program and tiered system affect not only new upcoming companies that are trying to get their foot in the door with IoT, but even potentially established companies in our industry that just don't play in that world right now?
So you're asking me a question to something that's already rolling through my head, because I'm already like, okay, Avi, so I got to call you and volunteer some time as we're getting into, RF protocols for control for things we're building right now. So Matt, to answer your question, that's absolutely relevant, because before you said anything, I'm already thinking about this for our company, because not everything is about cost. But when you sit down with things at like a board meeting or an executive meeting, and you're not 100% sure, which level you would be at, you're obviously going to take the cheapest one or near that, maybe the middle one, and you're going to miss out on even evaluating things that might actually be important, right? You're not going to know. Mm-hmm. So this new platform, because not only does it kind of open up kind of the other levels, it makes cost of acquisition easier, but like Avi said, it also gives you help from the Z-Wave Alliance. So now you have somebody else to evaluate and help you figure out where actually do I need to be. I mean, all I want is, we're just example, play, pause, skip. But I didn't know that I needed, short metadata or handshakes from one device. I didn't know I needed that. Had this out of it a bit, I may have never found out. You know what I mean? So that is kind of a big deal. The other part that's a big deal, though, is kind of what they're doing on the news side, especially like in a commercial market, like he was saying, where locks access control, right? In the past, Z-Wave got left out of a lot of, we'll just call them properties that they should have been in, because you have to have those extra things that tie into things like BMS, like a building management system. So that kind of shortens where you can actually be offered at. It's a problem. I mean, Z-Wave, Zigbee had that problem a while back. Bluetooth had that problem when they were going over into BLE. Like that's, it's one of those things of a platform growing up and, so to speak, putting on the big boy pants, right? There's requirements there that you have to meet or you get left out. And Z-Wave is checking those boxes now. It's like a whole think bigger thing. It's like, we've got this down to a science. We handle all of that. Now there's this whole other big picture that we need to attain, and now they put the platform together that can do it. So I think it's kind of a roundabout thing, because also now you do that with the levels. You're going to have manufacturers that already build stuff in that higher tier that would have never looked at Z-Wave. Now the cost is better. They're going to have help from Z-Wave to figure it out. I mean, this is kind of a top to bottom play that I think is like really good for Z-Wave.
And we've got new stuff coming out as well, right? We have totally taken off the training wheels when it comes to bringing out software now that we're an SDO. And so we're getting inbounds from dozens and dozens of companies around the world that are now giving us inputs, giving us code to add to the open standard. And so now the acceleration is just increasing. The flywheel starts to spin. Right, you start to get some great ideas, and everybody starts adding on to them. Home Assistant, for instance, the new Bukasa guys just joined the board of directors of the Z-Wave Alliance, and they bring with them the number one item in GitHub. That is a phenomenal platform to be able to speak to people and then get them to contribute to the open source. So Joe's totally right. The more we accelerate this thing, the more industries we can go after.
Yeah, that's fantastic. All right, gentlemen, let's hit our last story of the day. It wouldn't be a ResiWeek show without discussing Sonos. So we're going to hit it off. This comes direct from Sonos.com. They've got a team update from the interim CEO, Tom, changing the way they operate. They just had a call. This is dated on the 5th of February. They had a call where they made the difficult decision to eliminate, and I'm semi-quoting here, about 200 positions in the company. So we're going to get to that part in a second. What I wanted to start it off with is, and again, go read the whole thing if you are so inclined. Something that they're doing is they're reorganizing their product organization into functional groups for hardware, software, design, quality, and operations, and getting away from dedicated business units devoted to individual product categories. Joe, I want to start with you on this. They're saying that this is a simpler organizational structure by getting away from individual product categories and getting it into hardware, software, design, quality, operations. Give us a little bit of kind of oversight or insight to how that actually can simplify operations opposed to just shuffling things up a little bit.
Well, it is a smart transition for a company that's public, right? They've kind of hit the wall of growth in typical consumer residential, right? You have your smaller speakers, your big ones, you got into headphones. There's only so far you can grow. Now, my good buddy Casey Clements is now in charge of like the commercial stuff over there. Now, when you're a company that big that has to report to stockholders, it would be a silly thing to do to create two separate ecosystems with two separate sets of products for two separate markets when they could consolidate everything in, and an era that's for residential is also the same era that's for commercial. Add a PoE port or not, doesn't matter, right? The same thing could be said of headphones. Headphones could make a great commercial transition. I was in a museum, I think it was the Picasso Museum while I was in Spain, and the headphones there, they sucked. I'm just going to say. There's those plays that, you know, that you can kind of, you've got to be able to go both ways. And coming out of all, and this is actually a business part of this move that I find kind of important and intriguing, is anytime you have a leadership change, right? So that immediately comes with a strategy shift. It always does, at any level. So what is the thing you do on that? All right. The first thing is consolidation. That's what they're going to do with products, right? Residential, commercial, doesn't matter. Same app, works everywhere. The next part of that is, now what do I do with employees? I've got people working on categories and products that no longer fit our strategy. They just don't fit anymore. So those people either can be shifted, which I'm sure there's been some people that have been shifted inside product categories, but there's some people that no longer fit. I mean, who knows? They could have been making speakers that fit on rockets. We don't know, but I guess what? That's not going to fit their strategy anymore. You know what I mean? So in that token, that shift actually makes sense. Now we're also going into a really, I don't know, economic market with tariffs and everything else. So everybody's got to tighten their belt. Don't think they're the only ones doing it. They're the only ones reporting, though, because they are a public company. All these private companies are doing the exact same thing. Consolidations of products, brands, manufacturers, and employees. It's happening across the board. It just so happened that happened like right before they reported, their public financials. So they kind of had to do something. So, I mean, there's a lot into it. The writing will be on the wall, right? We're going to see if it's going to work. We're going to see if it pans out. Nobody has any idea what they have up their sleeve, but it's an obvious strategic change. And I wish them the best with that. I want to see some more, kick-ass products. Like, give me something cool. So if you're watching Sonos with your new, you move around, bring me something cool. Let me see something cool.
Yeah, that's what we've been waiting for a while. Avi, let me come to you on this. I come to confidence, right? And in the vein that we always come at from this show, we're talking about the residential tech industry, and we often forget that Sonos is a publicly traded company, which Joe mentioned multiple times. That means that they do things dramatically different than your mom and pop shop that's making speakers, for example. That all being said, to me, it's hard to inspire confidence with a minor reorg, albeit it was probably needed because that was probably antiquated from when they, started. But to do a minor reorg and fire a bunch of employees, again, they have a ton of employees. I'm not making light of people who have lost their job, but this is a minor percentage of their employees. It's not like they cut 25%, right? But what does it say to our industry and possibly more important to the consumer and the street that they're letting go of employees while still having massive internal issues that consumers are dealing with on a day-to-day basis?
Couple things.
Answer as diplomatically as you'd like.
No, I don't see the beauty for me as a consultant to the industry is that, and Sonos is not a client, so no conflict of interest here. I don't have to be that diplomatic because I ain't even a shareholder. What this announcement told me was I value my shareholders more than I value my customers. That's what this was all about. Okay. I'm going to lower my costs. I'm going to reorganize my work. I'm going to reorganize my departments. While the building is on fire, I'm going to fire firemen. Right? This is ridiculous.
I'll let you finish, but I have a rebuttal.
Yeah, I kind of want to push back on that one. And I'm not going to let you finish.
Go ahead.
I am all in favor of firing employees that either have no value or are duplicitous. The other...
Oh, hold on. That's not what he says.
No.
That's not what he says in his write-up.
But no one says that
There's
in a publicly filed statement. No one says, we're firing all these people because we had 3 of them.
Well, but hold on. See, here's the deal. You're assuming facts, not in evidence. What he says in this statement is that he is creating a more efficient, and more economical working business model. That's Wall Street speak for we screwed up and we're going to lower our overhead to increase shareholder value.
Right.
That's what
we're only talking 200 employees. That is not reducing overhead in any significant manner.
Overhead.
In a significant manner based on...
How many employees does Sonos have?
I would have to look this up because I do not know off the top of my head.
I wonder how many product staffers they have as well. Because, Avi, the only reason I'm going to make the rebuttal is because I agree with what you're saying. But, there's a but.
Yeah. Isn't there always?
You take any company, public or private, either way, right? And you've got Reddit, and you've got, social media and all of that. And say you're trying to revitalize or create a new strategy for a company, right? You're going to look at what the biggest complaints were about a product or service. You're always going to do that, right? If you go to Reddit and social and blah, 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 95% of the complaints came from things that were created, maintained, or invented by that department. So that means that those individuals that are no longer there created all the stuff people are complaining about.
No, I'm sorry, Joe. Again, facts not in evidence.
They're not in evidence.
There is no way, unless you see a list of the employees that were let go, there is no way that you would ever know. Assumption,
yes,
right,
you would
the
never
people
know.
Who were let go were the dead weight. Now, look, we're going to assume that the people who were let go that were dead weight. Look, the CEO was let go as well, and there are some that would argue that he was dead weight, that he precipitated all of this, whether you liked him or not. So you can't make that assumption. The only assumption you know for sure
is what he said.
Payroll, right? The payroll for Sonos is 200 heads less than it was last week.
10% of employees.
10%.
So it's actually higher than I suspected.
So Matt, that's a cost savings thing.
It is. I take it back. My apologies.
You just made the light bulb go off in my head. Look, there it is. Light bulb went off.
Right? This was, I have mine over there. Wait, there's my light bulb.
Yeah, because we could assume anything. We could assume that he didn't like people who wore green shoes. And everybody that had green shoes that day had to go.
That day had to go.
All we can go on is a public statement. And, one of the quickest ways to turn around a company, obviously, is shoring up financials. So first, and they're probably going to close down some warehouses. They're probably going to change some shipping methods. There's going to be that first.
That because, again, he's speaking directly to the shareholders and to Wall Street. He's speaking directly to the analysts. Notice nothing in his statement had to do with customer satisfaction, integrator satisfaction, integration of product. There are, X% of units out there that are bricked right now. Where's the customer service outreach to those customers that have been bricked?
We'll probably hear that maybe in a week or so, because my thought is that during the ISE show, they talk to people to get feedback before. It's what I would do personally.
It's what I would do.
I would talk to people and get the feedback and then release something for specific.
I have no crystal ball. I have no inside information on Sonos. I am merely seeing. Right? Where is it? It's around here someplace. All I'm, when we all prep for these podcasts, right? And part of the prep, obviously, is to read up on the subject matter before it happens. And I read up on what Sonos has been doing. And look, there's been a lot of talk in the industry about how their new software rollout did not exactly go smoothly, right? We don't have to be diplomatic about it. Everybody knows.
That is the understatement of the show.
There you go. Okay. So the first knee-jerk reaction shouldn't be, oh, I know what we're going to do. Let's fire everybody and make them figure out new jobs. How about fix the technical issues first? And then, because anybody who's been part of a large organization that's gone through one of these reorgs knows that there is confusion amongst the employees for a certain period of time where everybody figures out where their new position in the organization is. Maybe they have a new boss. Maybe they have new reports. Maybe they have new responsibilities. Whatever it is, this is not the time to be shuffling the deck. Fix the systemic problem first, then address the efficiencies of your team. They're doing it backwards. And of course, I could make the argument they should have done this years ago and it would have solved the problem that they're currently mired in, because clearly they had too many silos and not enough breaks, not enough gates for their software people to get through in order to prove what was going on in their updates before they just pushed them out the door.
So let me ask you.
To me, this is a financial thing. And notice the timing is right before the financial disclosure of their quarterly.
Which is 2 days later, right? Or or we're 2 days
or
out.
Just about to happen?
Just about to happen. I think we're 2 days out.
Yeah, it'll probably, I think it comes out before this episode will drop. That being said, do you think that this is enough? Or is...
That's a good question.
I'll take this one first, Matt.
Yeah, because I don't know.
Okay, I'll actually take this one because this one leaves Avi with more questions than answers, I'm sure. Because Avi's seen companies do this from the inside. Avi's been an insider when things like this have happened. So we've seen more than once this be tried. I've seen it as well.
Yeah.
Some of them have turned out really great, like amazing. Some of them, that was like the last ditch effort. Before that, we no longer saw the company anymore.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm hoping for is there's always got to be some kind of like catastrophic thing you have to do that starts the trend for change, right? This could have been getting rid of 200 employees. This could have been shutting down an entire market. This could have been a lot of different things, but it has to start somewhere, and it has to be huge, catastrophic, and come with backlash. Because if you don't get that out of the way in the beginning, you can't do any of the real work. You got to get shock and awe and pissed off people out first. Then you can get to the real work. This is just one of the methods to do this. We saw Harman do this years ago, this exact same thing. And at the time, guess what? It saved their ship. And then they went on to do other like cool stuff. So great. Some not cool, some cool. But you get what I'm saying. They had to start somewhere. If you're going to rebuild, right, go into new categories or rebuild, you're going to have to start with a rebuilding of some company culture, rebuilding of locking down some finances so I can move some money from seats, or not just people, but the seats they sat in, the building they were in, the budget they were under. I need that to go build some new innovation. I need that to move the goal line. I need that to fix software. That they've got to start. So for me, from the outside, and of course I do have friends that work there, and still work there, by the way. I see this trend where this really could go in the right direction. Could it fail? Yes. Could it work? Yes. I got to talk to their new CRO. Like, it has to start somewhere, right? And if it is reinventing from the inside out down to staffers, good for them. If they're going to truck through this, and like I said, bring me more cool product, please.
And Joe, it's not that I disagree that you have to crack some eggs to make an omelet, right? I get that. My opinion is the timing of this, right? They've been struggling with this situation now for a long time. They are running very late in their customer service curve of bringing everybody back in the boat. This doesn't mean that Sonos is going away. 5 years from now, this will be a great life lesson that they can look back on and say, man, 5 years ago, we were really in trouble, and it took that event to make us better. Yes. My problem with all of this is the timing of it. That's all. Yeah, you got to break those eggs. Yeah, maybe those 200 people did need to go. I don't know. It's not for me to say. It's not for me to judge, and I won't. All I'm saying is, to me, this one press release is speaking to the shareholders and not the dealers and not the retailers and not the customers. This press release is all about shareholder value and not anybody else. And there was a way that they could have written it that spoke to each of those audiences, and they chose not to because they were more worried about their shareholders, in my opinion, than they were speaking to anybody else. And if you look at the communication that's gone out to those other constituents, it has been very, very quiet.
Well, that starts with the money, though, Avi. The shareholder starts with the money. So in my situation, I would want to talk to them first because I need to know, are they going to back me? Are they going to have my back before I start spending on money and resources on fixing the customer thing?
The shares are already down, Joe, because of the reputation's already been damaged.
Okay,
right. You've got to shore up support on many different fronts.
He's only been in the interim position for the better part of 6 weeks now?
Yeah, give or take.
So I think the timing is just bad in general. I don't necessarily think that it's hey, we paused on this for 3 weeks so we could drop it right before our reports, right? I think it took him time to come in and go, okay, let's get a lay of the land. Let's figure it out.
But you're telling me there's no VP of marketing in that place. There's no director of marketing. There's no Marcom person that's raising their hand violently and waving it 6 months ago to say, hey, there's a problem. This is not like this happened last week.
I'm aware, but we've known for at least 6 months that was not seemingly part of their approach, because they've had a litany. And like we've been talking about it on this show for 10 months probably now, ever since it first dropped. Not only about the problems, but honestly, I think I've spent more time railing on the response from corporate to dealers and to end users, and how many big public names have called them out publicly on all the platforms we use and have got the canned response for a couple of days of, we're sorry to hear that you're not satisfied. We'd love to help. Send us a DM, which doesn't do much, as we all know.
Doesn't do much. There's an old saying in software development that a bug should never have a birthday.
Yeah, no, you don't want the birthday.
Exactly. And their bug is about to have a birthday.
I look at it and say, I understand why they wrote it the way they did. Because today the problem is the shareholders. And respectfully, saying any of this information, no matter how nicely you wrap it, to a dealer, or more importantly, a consumer, the consumers don't care that they're streamlining anything. They just want their stinking stuff to work. And they want all their services within the app to stink and function. And my daughter wants her playlist to play at 8 o'clock when it's supposed to turn on, and not ask me to snooze it. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. But I hope that this is the start of the turnaround, opposed to the start of, wow, remember when they announced that? It's been downhill since then.
That's actually, you just said what I actually really, 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 really hope for in this whole scenario.
That's because we're simpatico.
Where somebody comes in, like, whether it be the interim CEO or a whole brand new CEO, and reimagines Sonos of today that matches the philosophy of kind of when it started
10 years ago. Yeah.
Yes. Like if you could reimagine, because we do enjoy music a little differently than we did 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But the core philosophy that Sonos had the first time I ever saw it in Best Buy, that part is still relevant today. Now, if you could take that and match that to the way we consume media today, you have something that'll never go away. And everybody knows that anything in content, whether it be a Samsung Frame TV or whatever, the way we consume things changes over time. It always does. With age, like my hair's getting worse. My hearing's getting worse. Like things change. Now you got kids' music you got to deal with. There's just all these things. But the core philosophy of why Sonos started what they started and what they were doing was so good that hundreds of companies have tried to copy them. Hundreds of companies have tried to be like them. Every consumer knows the name because the philosophy at the beginning was the most perfect philosophy when it comes to enjoying music in a home or the business. If they could revitalize that, and I hope that's what this is, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
There's absolutely no reason to think that it's not, right? There's no reason to think that it's not a getting back to basics and moving forward. My only comment was the fact that the timing, and God, it took them so long to figure it out. It's like we all knew, those of us in the business, those of us who've been doing this long enough knew that this day was coming. Yeah. This day should have happened 6 months ago. The firing of the CEO, the rejiggering of the company, the reestablishment of their core values, the moving back to tradition, we all knew it was coming. Why did it take them so long to figure it out?
Well, Avi, I'll tell you what you told me when I got married. Better late than never.
There you go. Sorry, Sarah. That's on me.
We will leave it there because we could go on and on about this.
Forever.
I have theories about what you just said, Avi, that I would happily share. But we'll leave that for another time. Thank you both so much for joining us. Avi, if people want to connect with you, learn more about BlueConnect Partners, where can they do that?
So we have a fantastic new website that the team just put together. You can find it at BlueConnectPartners.com, all one word. We're really excited about it. We're really excited about the fact that we have grown. We've changed our name. We have some new directions that we're taking that you're going to hear about in the very near future. But check us out on our website. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, all those happy places. And, of course, you can always reach me, Avi, at BlueConnectPartners.com.
I love it. Joe, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Origin Acoustics, where can they do that?
They can always find us on the web, which is originacoustics.com, on all the good old socials at Origin or at Origin Pro. And they can, of course, find me on all them fun social media platforms, although I think my name on the good old FB has changed because I got hacked. So, but you can find me out there everywhere. I'm traveling a little more now, so you'll see me at trade shows. I got to actually eat with Avi while I was at ISE. It's good. And, I can say, I'm back to being the outward-facing person that you all know. So get a hold of me directly, Joe at originacoustics.com.
Excellent. Thank you both. Again, thank you for joining us. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Twitter or X at Matt D. Scott and most other social platforms as well. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek,
the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation. Hello, this is Steve Greenblatt, host of AVNation's State of Control podcast. Each month, Rich Fregosa and I explore trending topics related to control programming and automation in the audiovisual industry. We speak with a variety of AV professionals who share their perspectives, knowledge, and experiences. Please join us for this monthly conversation. Check out A State of Control on avnation.tv or wherever you get your podcasts.